people should only really participate in publishing if they helped write the song. So co-writers in a room working out the song. I don't care what instrument you play. You could play the harmonica. You could play the shaker. You don't even have to play an instrument. It doesn't really matter. This is for illustration purposes why I said drummer, but it doesn't matter. Whatever instrument you play, if you helped contribute to the melody and the lyrics, or you happen to be in the room when the song is being created and you are contributing to the essence, to the feel as the song is being written, that is your collaborator on a song. You're a co-writer now. What's going on? Welcome to the New Music Business. I'm your host, Ari Herstand, author of How to Make It in the New Music Business. The book, third edition, is out. You know this. Go find it wherever you find books. All formats, hardcover, ebook, audiobook. Find the book. Today, I don't have a guest, but that's okay. Don't go anywhere. We are going to talk about stuff that's super important. We're talking about royalties and registration and publishing. And if you caught my episode last week with Jacob Paul from Cobalt and Cosign, we dug into publishing, but I'm talking about this in a slightly different way today. Maybe you caught my video on social media, on TikTok and Instagram. It went pretty viral. It got like 50,000 views in a day. It was called Don't Cut Your Drummer into Publishing, just like this episode is called. I took it down. Don't go looking for it because the message was getting garbled. And there was some moments where I wasn't like super clear in it. And people were, instead of like trying to respond to everyone in the comments and explaining how publishing works, I was like, all right, there's a better way to do this. Drummers were starting to revolt and rage at me. I learned a long time ago, never piss off a drummer. So I figured, you know what, let me clear this up. So I wrote an Ari's Take article about it. You can go read that on Ari's Take, send out an email blast about it. But I know a lot of you don't follow me on the socials. You're not subscribed to the email list, which, by the way, pause this right now. Go subscribe to the email list, aristake.com. Just get on the email list. And while you're at it, since you were paused right now, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify, podcast, Apple Podcasts, however you're listening to this right now. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. All right. Anyway, so I know some of you don't follow me there. So I wanted to just make an episode because some of you just listen to the podcast, and let's talk about it because this is a really, really important topic. And if you haven't listened to last week's episode with Jacob, I encourage you to go listen to that. He lays this out really well, gets into the nitty-gritty of royalties and publishing and all that stuff. But I wanted to talk about this specifically, this issue of session musicians. So you probably clicked on this because it's called Don't Cut Your Drummer into Publishing Royalties. Probably a lot of drummers are listening right now, ready to just like rage at me, ready to find out where I live and come fight me or something like that. Calm down. Just chill. I promise you it's gonna make sense when we're done with this. I also want to make super clear that I'm not telling anyone how to run your band. So if you have a band and there's 3 of you or 4 of you or 7 of you or 30 of you, it doesn't matter. You run your band however you want to run your band for band harmony. So if you think that all 4 members of your band, you're going to split everything equally, beautiful. Go do that. I'm not going to tell you how to run your band. What I'm going to be talking about today, very specifically, is about session musicians. So that's artists hiring session musicians, singer-songwriters, hiring people to come into the studio and play the songs that are already written, okay? Very, very different from a band working stuff out together or just however a band runs. So if you're an artist and you're hiring session musicians, I want to talk about how this works because there's so much confusion on how royalties work, how registering works, all of that. And this is actually inspired by a real life scenario where a singer-songwriter cut in some of their session musicians, to publishing, and just to be generous. And they didn't think much of it. They're just like, oh, I love you guys. You're my friends. We've been together a long time. You've been playing with me for so much. I haven't been able to pay you as much as you're worth, as you make on other gigs. But, they paid a session fee. And then they just cut him into publishing because they're like, just trying to be generous. That came to bite them in the ass years later when they got a sync offer for $30,000, and they lost it because they couldn't get one of the session musicians happened to be the drummer, to sign off on the licensing agreement in time, and they lost the sync. So why did that happen? How does this all work? So let's break this down. So in sync specifically, most music supervisors that are the ones that are kind of handling the business for these licenses for sync, they will require sign off from every single songwriter. Every single songwriter. So if you're confused right now because we're saying, well, I thought he said he was going to talk about publishing. Why are you talking about songwriters? Publishing is songwriting. So I know there's a lot of confusing terms in the industry, and that has been my life mission to help educate people on these confusing terms in this crazy industry that we exist in. But publishing is songwriting. Whenever you see the word publishing, just cross it out and say to yourself, songwriting. So publishing equals songwriting. But also the legal definition of kind of what songwriting is, it's also called like composing or the composition. Songwriters write songs or compositions. When you register that with the US Copyright Office, it's also called a musical work. And how it's been defined throughout history is melody and lyrics. So that is what that's what a composition is. That is what is registered with. That's what the law says. It has been tested. It is melody and lyrics. So music and lyrics is kind of what they call it for short. But music really is the melody. That is what a composition is. That's what a song is. That is what falls under the umbrella of publishing, and that is the legal definition. So cutting people into publishing, it's really, people should only really participate in publishing if they helped write the song. So co-writers in a room working out the song. I don't care what instrument you play. You could play the harmonica. You could play the shaker. You don't even have to play an instrument. It doesn't really matter. This is for illustration purposes why I said drummer, but it doesn't matter. Whatever instrument you play, if you helped contribute to the melody and the lyrics, or you happen to be in the room when the song is being created and you are contributing to the essence, to the feel as the song is being written, that is your collaborator on a song. You're a co-writer now. In Nashville, they have the saying, one word, one third. That just means if there's 3 songwriters in the room, everybody splits it equally, no matter what. You might have contributed 90% of the lyrics, 10% of the melody. They don't even break it down like that because it's like, the vibe changes based on the people that are in the room. And so to not have to worry about, well, how many words did you write in? Well, I wrote that chorus, but the chorus is more important. Well, I wrote the lyric and I wrote the verse, and that third verse, man, that's the one that people are going to be quoting. And you don't have to get into all of that nonsense. It's just like, if you're in the room, you're a co-writer on the song. Sometimes you might contribute, you might throw out one word. Maybe that becomes the title. Maybe that changes the entire process of the entire session. Other days, you might be, the driver. You might have the guitar. You might be on the DAW, working it out, creating the beat, whatever. So it's easiest if you just split everything equally, but not everybody does that because there's various songwriting arrangements, or maybe like someone comes into song doctorate later, maybe it gets sent to a producer later on and they change the chords around a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios, but the easiest thing is just like co-writers split it equally. Other things that I've seen in what happens is in pop and hip hop, oftentimes the producer that creates the beat inside the box, they call it the beat, but it's really just the instrumental production. They have created this instrumental production. They've come up with the foundation of the song that is then being written to by the top liner. Oftentimes, that producer, they'll ask for 50% of the publishing because they're like, you know what? And then the top liner split the other 50%. That's kind of how it works in pop and hip hop. And I told you how it works in country music and in Nashville and all that stuff. But in general, people that help write the song, the melody and the lyrics, they participate in publishing. So getting back to this, there are other ways to do this. If you want to be generous, you're an artist or a singer-songwriter, you're hiring session musicians, you can cut them into the master royalties. Master royalties, sometimes it's called the sound recording. Master royalties are very different from publishing. Like I said, in the sync scenario, music supervisors require every single songwriter or their publisher to sign off on a sync. And yes, people have said, and you can say, just get them to sign a one-stop agreement. What is a one-stop agreement? A one-stop agreement is essentially you designate one person or party or an agent or something like that, or a publisher to, they're going to handle in any sync instance that they will have full ability to sign off on every single writer. So you get them to sign a one-stop agreement. And so then the sync agent go to the music supervisor and look, I have all the songwriters' signatures right here saying we have all signed off. All 5 of us have signed off. And I, as the sync agent, legally have the right to negotiate this on behalf of all 5 of these co-writers. The music supervisor will look at that and be like, okay, this checks out. I'll negotiate with you. If they don't have a one-stop agreement, they're going to be like, I'm not going to sync this until I get explicit sign-off from every single songwriter or their publisher. That's how that singer-songwriter who I mentioned earlier lost the $30,000 sync. Don't have this happen to you. Get a one-stop agreement signed by every collaborator, every songwriter in general. That's just like a good practice if you're going to be focusing on sync. But anyway, let's get back to this. So if you want to cut your session musicians into some royalties, which is very noble, I do it. I think you should cut them into master royalties. Maybe give them 1 point of the master. Again, that has nothing to do with publishing. That is master royalties. They contributed to the recording. They played an instrument on the recording. They helped create that master recording. Sure, give them like 1 point, of the master. What's 1 percentage? It's like they call points percentages. It's whatever. 1 point, 1 percentage point on the master. Now, how does that work in practice? Well, most distributors these days, you can log into the back end and set the payment splitting right there. So log into your distributor. Not all of them have this, but I have a distribution comparison on aristake.com. Just search for, or just Google music distribution comparison Aristake, and you'll find the article. And you'll see which distributors have payment splitting. If you have payment splitting, you can designate as many people as you want to cut into your master royalties. Again, that's just the master recording. That has nothing to do with publishing. Publishing is different. What is publishing? Songwriting. We already went through this. Okay, so that's the songwriting. Now, cut them in. Master royalties actually make more. The sound recording makes more than publishing. And it's a loose calculation, but about 80% of the money that is made from streaming comes in the form of master sound recording royalties. The other 20% is publishing. That is just kind of how it breaks down these days. We can talk about like ethically or whatever, like legally how this all works. I don't agree. I think it should be 50-50, but that's not up to me. That's not up to anyone, really. Really, it's up to the major labels because they've dictated these terms for many, many years. They're never going to say, yeah, we'll make less so the publishers and the songwriters can make more. No, this is unfortunately been going on for about 100 years of just kind of how this works. And we have come to this place where for some reason, the sound recording makes 80% and the publishing only makes about 20%. And so whoever holds the master recording rights, which is the label or the artist, are making more than the songwriters. It's, I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I think it should be split 50-50. In sync, it's pretty much split 50-50. If you're going to get a sync license, they pay most of the time about half the money to the publishers, so for whoever wrote the song, and about half the money to the master rights holder, which is the label or the artists. Now, if you listened to the episode last week, we highlighted the difference between what an artist is and what a songwriter is. So artist with a capital A, songwriter with a capital S, they're completely two different people. I know most of you are both. I'm both. I write songs and my name is on it. I sing those songs. I record under my name, but I also record under other projects. And I also write songs for other artists and my name's not on them. So you can kind of see why it's important to differentiate between an artist. An artist is usually the artist name. So when you go onto your streaming service, that name that's right there when you click play on it, what is that name right there? Or on the cover of an album, if you remember, records, like what was the name on the cover of the album? That's the artist name. And usually on the streaming services, there's literally a thing that says artist, name of the artist. And then who are the songwriters? That's totally different. It could be completely different people, had nothing to do with the recording, or it could be the same person. It could be you. It could be the songwriter and the artist. But there's different royalties for both, for all of that. So, and there's different rights, there's different ways to register, which brings me back to my original point of who you should be cutting into your royalties. Publishing, again, to sum this all up, is just for people who wrote the song. Again, this is just for artists hiring session musicians, singer-songwriters hiring session musicians. If you're in the band, you do what you want to do. You split it up for best for band harmony, do what you will. And then master royalties, that's on the other side. That's what you set in the back end of your distributor. You can cut, oftentimes producers are cut into master royalties, and sometimes session players. It's not that common, to be honest. Most people don't cut in session musicians. Most people hire a session musician on a work for hire basis. They come in for the couple hours or the day or the whatever. They play their part, and you pay them their session fee, whatever, a couple $100, and they leave. And that's the job. They know that, and they never see another dime. That is how it's worked historically forever. I think you can change that. Give them, is it right that Taylor Swift is a billionaire, but the people who played on her records are struggling and scraping by, and those especially that maybe played on early records and aren't playing with her anymore and now have to grind it all out? Is that right? She would probably say, yeah, that is right. And every major label would probably say, yes, that is correct. That is how this industry works. We should have billionaires, superstars, and we make the money as the label. And then all the session musicians should, they grind it out. And that is the job. They signed up for it. Okay, that's an argument. That's not the argument. I think that we can share some of that wealth. Granted, if we're all struggling musicians, there's we're trying to split up pennies here. But if there are any people that are actually, if there are any artists listening to this right now and you're making a ton of money, you're making millions of dollars or something like that, or hundreds of thousands or whatever, and your session musicians aren't, then maybe cut them into master royalties. Maybe give them a point on the master. Maybe it's something to think about. So I hope now, we are, you see that I am on the side of musicians. I am on the side of drummers. I love drummers. I'm obsessed with drummers. You could line up, I could do a blind listening of some of my favorite drummers, some of the best drummers in the world, like Questlove or Anderson .Paak or Dave King, Carter Beauford, Bernard Purdie, Steve Jordan, John Bonham. Put them up, sonic lineup for me, blindfolded audio lineup. I can tell you the difference. I love drummers. I'm obsessed with drummers. And sometimes I go to the concert, I just stand side stage and I just watch the drummers. So drummers, stand down, please. This is, I needed to get this point across. So let me illustrate this a different way, because, when I posted this video initially and people were just raging at me, mostly drummers, about it. This one drummer didn't get it and was just said, if the drummer writes the drum part, they should have publishing. They helped write the song. They wrote the drum parts. Shouldn't they get publishing? They wrote the drum parts. Well, okay, let's illustrate. And then this drummer was in a grunge band. So I asked him, I'm just so Dave Grohl, who's the drummer in Nirvana, why did he not get songwriting credit, publishing, on the Nirvana song Lithium? And the grunge drummer was like, well, that's because Kurt Cobain wrote the entire song by himself. I was like, yeah, exactly. What? It's this cognitive dissonance. I didn't understand how he didn't understand. You just said if the drummer wrote the drum parts, he should get drum publishing, but Dave Grohl didn't on Lithium. And he's like, yeah, because Kurt Cobain wrote the whole song by himself and then brought it to the band. And then Dave Grohl played it and came up with the drum parts. See the difference? So again, band harmony, you do what you will. Coldplay splits everything 4 ways equally. Whether they wrote even the songs that Chris Martin plays acoustically on the record, I'm assuming Chris wrote that 100% by himself in a bedroom, and then they recorded it without any artist, without any other musician contribution in his band. They split everything, every single song, even those songs, 4 ways equally. That's fine. Coldplay does that. Nirvana obviously didn't. The 1975 doesn't either. There are. I do want to mention this. Well, let me just continue this illustration here for a second. Just for those of you that need another example that haven't quite grasped this. So again, The parts on a record are extremely important. No disputing that. Sometimes, guitar players came in and be like, I wrote all the guitar plots. I came up with hooks and I never get publishing. It's like, okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what is fair and then what is legal. But let's illustrate this. So, if your band makes a recording of Bob Dylan's Mr. Tambourine Man, we all know the song. You make this dope recording. And let's say it's one of the most incredible recordings and productions of all time. With insane drum part, like creative, super cool drums, out of this world drums. The guitar, man, melody, like just hook after hook after hook on the guitar, just riffing. And now it's like we've added all this incredible the melodies and hooks. A vocal for the ages. One of the best vocal performances of all time. People will be talking about this vocal for years. Does not mean that your band is now a co-writer with Bob Dylan. Okay? Does that make sense? You get it now? Like, doesn't matter how cool the recording is, you're not going to change the song. The song is the song. Bob Dylan will have always written Mr. Tambourine Man. That's not going to change. No matter how many different versions of that song there are, no matter how many cool versions, Mr. Tambourine Man will always be written by just Bob Dylan, not no one else. Like, you don't keep adding on songwriters based on how many recordings there are. So I hope that also helps break it down a little bit more, as in why you don't cut session musicians into publishing. They're not your co-writers on the song, no matter how cool their parts are. That's the thing. That's where master royalties are. Also worth noting for any session musicians listening to this, and I'm assuming there's a lot of you, you are actually legally entitled to 5% radio royalties out there for the recordings you played on. I know I probably just blew a lot of your minds. Most of you probably have never heard of this. Let's talk about this. You get 5% for radio royalties worldwide. In the States, if you're in the US and this was a recording that was made in the US, these are for digital radio royalties. Yes, this is broken down in the law. And these royalties are paid out by these digital radio services like SiriusXM or Pandora or iHeartMedia. SiriusXM is the biggest one. And they send 95% of these royalties to Sound Exchange. So I think a lot of you have heard of Sound Exchange. They license and collect these radio royalties, digital radio royalties for recordings and artists and labels, not publishers. This has nothing to do with songwriting now. This is not publishing. This is not songwriters. This is not publishers. Sound Exchange has nothing to do with publishing. Sound Exchange is just for the recording. So SiriusXM sends 95% of the money to Sound Exchange. And then they send 5% of the money for the session musicians. And that is going to the AFM SAG-AFTRA fund, it's called. The unions just manage it. You don't have to be a member of the union to get this money. Whether it was a union recording or not, does not matter. 5% of all the radio royalties go into this fund. So if you've never heard of this and you're like, man, I played on a bunch of these hit records. The records that I played on, they've definitely gotten played on SiriusXM. There's probably money out there for you. So how do you go get your money? Google AFM SAG-AFTRA Fund. It'll be the first hit. It's like the Intellectual Property Fund. They have a list of hundreds of musicians that they cannot track down. They don't know how to send you your money. Go look in that list. They track like the top, I should know this, maybe 20,000 recordings a year, the most that have made that money or something like that. They don't have everything. So if you know that a recording has been played, especially on SiriusXM a lot, if it's not registered there, you can get in touch with them and be like, hey, this recording, was spun. And then like, how does this work? And if your name's not listed there and you know that, then they'll help you through this. But basically, they track all of these. The label usually sends the information of the session musicians to the fund. So especially if you played on an indie record and the artist didn't know how to do this, because most artists don't, or most, honestly, indie labels don't even do this and don't really know how to do this. The majors have this in place for the most part, by and large, because they don't want to get sued. But you might need to do a little bit of research. Internationally, if you are listening to this outside the U.S., or the recording was done, made outside the U.S., you look for that local, it's called neighboring rights. So you find your local neighboring rights organization and they handle this. And it's not like, it's a different breakdown percentage everywhere, but for the most part, by and large, session musicians are paid some neighboring rights royalties. So go look for some of those royalties as well. Okay, so I know there's going to be a lot of questions. Feel free to leave a comment, leave a question, however you're listening to this, YouTube or Spotify has comments now. You can leave that. Or better yet, join us in Ari's Take Academy. Enrollment is only open twice a year. It's only open for a few weeks twice a year. You happen to be, if you've caught this within a couple weeks of us publishing this, we are in an open enrollment period. We have a course called Registration, Royalties, and Release plus Streaming Growth, where we help you break down and understand how to register all your music, how to collect 100% of your royalties wherever they exist around the world, how to roll out your music, so a full release plan, singles, albums, all of that, and then how to market it and promote it in the most cutting edge, up-to-date ways of how to market and promote your music. We touch everything, obviously social media, running ads, organic growth, paid growth, PR, all of that. We break it all down. Join us, aristakeacademy.com. If you're listening to this New Music Business Podcast, you can use the code NMB, New Music Business, NMB for 10% off. Go check it out, aristakeacademy.com. All right, cool. Hopefully that was helpful. See you next time. Today's episode was edited by Ari Davids with music by Grassroots District and produced by all the great people at Ari's Take.